Tonight on America's Dumbest Criminals. If their getaway planning included running around in circles, these guys are following it to a T. This man may think he's Houdini, but as you'll see, he's more like Houdumbi. And the blockhead in this cell block passes a note that'll leave him fumbling for a response. Kick back and relax as you'll watch the good guys punt the bad guys right into prison on America's Dumbest Criminals.
Delta 1566, give me a call and you'll come
Now, welcome your host for America's Dumbest Criminals, Daniel Butler and Debbie Allen.
Glad you're with us tonight. Debbie, what's the biggest thing you've ever won, huh?
You mean like in a contest or a giveaway?
Yeah, school cakewalk, Powerball, Lotto, anything like that.
Okay, an apple pie at McDonald's.
Okay, wow.
But now you strike me as someone who good fortune just smiles upon.
Yeah, actually, it's because he's laughing at me at the irony, you know. But
What's your biggest win?
the Egg McMuffin. Actually, I won the Egg McMuffin, got actual pork in there.
Well, everybody comes out a winner tonight, except for the dumb crooks, of course.
Oh, but they think they're on the verge of scoring big time. Take our first story, for example. Police in the Bronx used a sting operation to round up dozens of suspects with outstanding warrants. The bait? Winning a contest.
And did they fall for it?
Oh, yeah.
Hook, line, and sinker. Watch as police officers reel in a boatload of crooks.
You too could be a winner. All it took to nab these wanted criminals was the lure of receiving money. Surprise! This guy even took a 2,000-mile bus ride to claim his cash.
Well, at first he wanted to know how much money he was getting back. We told him, well, let me check the computer before you get too excited. We had to slowly kind of reel him in.
The catch of the day was wanted for attempted murder. And he even suspected a sting.
He knew it was a sting. He knew he was going to get arrested. He knew. But he still came. I said, you know, why did you come here? Why did you come? He says, because I needed the money.
I hope the guy with the bus ticket didn't buy a round-trip ticket.
Okay. He knew it was a sting, but he went anyway because he needed the money. Oh, yeah. There's some smarts for you, huh?
And our next guy is no Fulbright scholar either. He's a car thief with his brain on autopilot.
Now, he thought that some good-natured soul had found his missing wallet and just wanted to get it back to its rightful owner. Well, he's partially right. See what we mean?
I'd received a call to go process a stolen car that had been recovered in a vacant field. When I got down there, the first thing that caught my attention was that there was a wallet laying in the front seat. Naturally, we looked in the wallet and found a driver's license, which did not belong to the registered owner of the car. On a hunch, I called the person whose driver's license it was.
Hello? Yeah, this is it.
And told him that I had found his driver's license and wallet, and would he like to come down to the police department to recover it?
Yeah, I'll be fine. Yeah, I'll be there. Thanks, sir. Bye-bye.
He was quite excited that we had found it and was very complimentary and thought we had done a great job and was just so excited to get his money and his driver's license back he couldn't stand it.
Hey, Mr. G.
Yeah.
Here's that wallet we found.
Oh, thank you, sir. Appreciate it.
Well, we can be of service to you.
And as if I was taking a report on found property, I asked him when he had last seen his wallet. He told me he just couldn't remember. So I asked him, well, where all had you been that night?
I was at a restaurant and went to a game.
And he named off 4 or 5 places, including the apartment complex where the car had been stolen from. At that point, I asked him, are you sure you didn't just leave that wallet in that 78 Plymouth? You could just see his shoulders sag. Sometimes they leave their calling cards, sometimes they leave their driver's license.
Yeah.
Never leave your wallet in the car you've just stolen.
Yeah, it's bad form. It really is.
Sometimes crooks think they're being so clever when they try to outfox police.
Yeah, our next guy thought he'd stash his drugs in his swimming pool. But based on his logic, he's apparently tried diving into the shallow end a few too many times, I think.
He leaves us something to remember me by.
was working narcotics and working undercover, and I got a call from another narcotics officer that we had a guy in our town that was selling drugs, and the guy was infamous for flushing the drugs down the toilet before the police could get in the door. So I put our undercover officers around the guy's house, and when everybody was ready, I got on the cellular phone, and I was about a block from his house. And I call him up on the cellular phone, and I tell the guy, hey man, I just got out of the jail, and I was in there, and there were a couple of narcotics officers, and they had a search warrant, and they were talking to somebody about some guy named Henry, and they're gonna come down there and they're gonna hit your house, man. If you got anything in there, you better get it out of there. And the guy goes, hey, what's your name? And I told him, my name's Jim. The guy goes, oh, thanks a lot, that's great, and hangs up on me. 30 seconds later, the guy comes running out the front door, and he's got a bag, and he's looking around back and forth in a total panic, and he sees one of our undercover guys, and he yells out like a scream, and he runs into his backyard, and the next thing we hear is... So we run over to the fence, and we look in the fence just as we catch him going in the house. So we get the guy out of the house, and we walk him back there, and we tell him, get down there in the pool and get the drugs. And what he had done is pulled the light out of the pool and stuffed the drugs behind the light. So he pulls the drugs out, and he hands them to us, and I'm thinking all the drugs are gone. It's all in the pool. And inside the bag, he's got it all sealed nice for us in a Ziploc bag that protected it from the water, so we got all his drugs. And I asked him, I said, how come you came running out the front door with all the drugs in your hand? And he says, hey, some guy called me on the phone and told me you guys were coming. I said, no kidding. I said, what was his name? He thinks a minute and goes, his name was Jim. And I said, glad to meet you. And the guy looks at me and he hangs his head down low and says, you guys knew I would do that, didn't you? I said, yep, sure did. He goes, man, I can't believe how dumb I am.
In Oklahoma, you can be fined, arrested, or jailed for making ugly faces at a dog.
Yeah, but what if the dog starts it? I guess that's a matter for the courts to decide. You know, some people will resort to any form of manipulation at their disposal to weasel out of a ticket. One of the more popular is the I'm a friend of a lot of police officers approach. Well, using this buddy-buddy system blew up in our next guy's face in a big way. We go to Provo, Utah for a shining example of America's dumbest excuses.
I was running radar in a residential area. It's a 25-mile-an-hour zone. I clocked a vehicle doing 40. I finally got him pulled over. He immediately started to try to gather the citation. He gave a trooper's name and a deputy sheriff's name that was in the area. He said, my next door neighbor married a Provo cop. I know him real well. I said, oh, what's his name? Oh, his name's Scott Fraser.
Officer Fraser.
Officer Fraser?
Yeah, Scott Fraser.
That's me. I know him, good-looking guy.
Yeah.
I've never met him before.
I went to school with his wife, so he's a good guy.
Really? I asked him, hey, is he a good guy? I don't know him. He's a great guy. I've known him for a long time. That's probably the dumbest excuse I've heard to get out of a citation. Needless to say, he got one anyway.
Liar, liar, pants on fire. Hey, Daniel, should we sing It's a Small World after all?
No, maybe for you, but I'm 6'4". You know, but it's hard to know just how tall our next crook is. Why? Because she spends so much of her time crawling around on the floor. How do we know this? She was scurrying about in plain view of a surveillance camera that caught her sneaky maneuvers. Let's take a peek at our itsy-bitsy spider.
She stowed away in a back room of this beverage store. It closed, then nosed around, completely unaware of this camera watching her every move.
This is very unique. In fact, it's probably the most unique crime I have worked since being in investigations.
She would go snooping, set off an alarm, then hurry back to her hiding place. After police responded several times and saw no problems, the alarm was turned off. That's when she made her escape, taking a money order machine and some cash. But she left one of the owners with a case of the willies.
Walked by there so many times, and it's like, you know, just thinking about her being there while you walk by and talking and stuff. This is a weird feeling.
When authorities came knocking on her door, it was her turn for weird feelings. The game was over, and she won't be playing hide and seek for quite some time.
One of my favorite movies is The Fugitive. Harrison Ford beats the odds to gain his freedom after a prison bus crashes. Now, the only thing this would-be escapee beats is his head. Watch a getaway that gets nowhere fast.
We were on patrol one night when we got a radio call that there was an escapee from one of the other officers. We were in the area, so we went to the scene of the escape, and there was a kid running with his hands handcuffed behind his back, and we figured that must be him, so we gave chase. The kid was running as fast as he could, trying to get away from us. We were in a shopping center area that had a stairwell that went to 2 different levels. He ran down the stairs, tripped, and before I could get to him, he was up again and was running again. He went down the other set of stairs, and I knew that he was faster than I was, so I threw my nightstick at his feet to try and trip him. When I threw it, I missed. He focused on the nightstick, and he turned around, still running full speed ahead. He didn't see it coming, and he turned around just in time for his nose to make contact with the side of the van. He was going so fast, it turned him off like a light switch. He fell down, and then he was taken into custody. He was probably the dumbest criminal I ever came across in my tour with Anchorage Police Department.
Here's Daniel with ADC headlines.
All the usual suspects were standing in the lineup. The detective asked each man to repeat the words, "Give me all your money or I'll shoot." But the true criminal couldn't contain himself. He corrected the officer by shouting, "That's not what I said." Oops, okay. Neighbors got an eyeful when they attended a neighborhood watch meeting hosted by a couple in their community of Oroville, California. The wife was wearing a dress stolen from one neighbor, and a stolen TV from another neighbor was in plain view. When a search warrant was issued, $9,000 in stolen goods were recovered from the neighborhood watch meeting. Okay, old habits are hard to break. That was apparently the case with a man in Boulder who immediately after being released went out to the courthouse parking lot and stole the judge's car. Okay, and that closes the file on ADC Headlines, news ripped from somewhere near the back of your local newspaper. Debbie?
When you think of Ivy League schools, you think of grand traditions, massive libraries, scholarly pursuits, and great big tuitions. Well, one such school seemed to have people engaging in an independent study that was hardly sanctioned by the dean: counterfeiting. I suppose the privileged can never be too privileged. Class is now in session for Counterfeiting 101.
Many young people go to college so they eventually can make more money. But 4 dumb criminals at Columbia University took that thought one step too far. They did make money, but it was in the basement of the journalism school.
Here we are at journalism, which is supposed to spread the truth to this country and the world at large, and we have dishonest people in the basement making dollar bills. It's sad.
3 former Columbia University students and another man used a color copier to manufacture 20,000 $20 bills. After extensive lab tests, the phony bills were traced to the copier in the printing and services department located in the basement.
I feel like a place like Columbia, people should be a little more aware of what's going on, not such stupid things.
All 4 were arrested, and Secret Service agents recovered about $75,000 in bogus bills, as well as cutting equipment. The 4 copycats may not have careers in journalism anymore, but their future in sales, rather sells, looks pretty good.
Interesting scholarship opportunity. You know, every once in a while, we all call wrong numbers. But here's the story of a call girl who couldn't have picked a wronger number if she dialed all day. It's a perfect example of, I'm where, you're who?
I'm an undercover narcotics investigator from the Abilene, Taylor County, Texas area. One day, I was out checking some possible narcotics trafficking locations when I got a page on my pager. And upon checking the number, I realized that it was not a number I was familiar with. I called the number back and a female answered the phone. I just said hello and talked to her a little bit. When I asked her what she was doing, she said she was looking for me. We visited back and forth over the phone for about 10 or 15 minutes, just talking. And I finally deduced that this lady I was talking to was a working woman. She actually thought I was somebody she had met the day before that had given her a pager number. After talking to her and visiting with her, I decided that I would go ahead and go along with it and see if it'd be any potential to make a case, and told her that I would have to get back in touch with her later on at the day, that I was tied up at work and what have you. And in reality, what I needed to do was get the vehicle wired for audio and video so we would have it for the criminal investigation. I went back to my office where she paged me at least 2 other times, and when I called her back, we discussed price, and she assured me that for $40 the sky was the limit. And I even talked her into letting me bring a buddy of mine along, and she had a friend also. We set up a time and drove to a predetermined location, and they came out and we picked them up in the vehicle, drove a short distance to a motel location. When we pulled into the motel, they were placed under arrest and were quite surprised. Before transporting them to jail after visiting with them, it was realized that the number that they had dialed was 1 digit off from my pager number. Sometimes all it takes is one wrong number to catch a dumb criminal.
I'm Corporal Billy Woods with the Ocala Police Department in Ocala, Florida. This particular evening, we were running an operation doing securities and checking certain establishments and with motorcycles and bicycle units. Well, this particular motorcycle unit had caught a burglar in progress. Well, the burglar had took the time to be quiet and was doing his best to get into the vehicle. Well, he got so frustrated, he ended up breaking the window, but at the same time, the officer caught him and he fled on foot. I ended up chasing him, catching him on foot about 200 yards away. Both your hands. Well, we ended up, after we did a little more investigating, it turns out the vehicle that he broke into. Hey, man, you know the door's open?
Our final crook of the evening stole his sister's checkbook and her car. What he should have been in the market for was brains.
Those 2 things got him in plenty of trouble, but then he felt it expedient to unwittingly rat on himself about something else. He provides the fodder for tonight's edition of We're Not Making This Up.
What happened is we had a guy that was a guest of the city. He'd been arrested earlier in the day on some check fraud. He had borrowed his sister's checkbook and decided to go write a couple checks. We brought him here, and later on he called his sister, and she came down to the police station to get the keys to her car that he had borrowed also. When I was in having him sign the property sheet to release the keys, he said, "Can I borrow a piece of paper?"
Do I have a note to my sister?
Yeah. Handed him my pen and my notepad, and he jotted a little note down saying he was sorry that he had borrowed her checkbook and written some checks.
Okay, don't read this, but give it to my sister.
Okay. He handed the notebook back to me, left it all open. When I was walking it out to her, happened to glance down to the note. He wrote on the bottom of the note, it says, "Whatever you do, don't let anybody look in the center console of the car." So I took the note out to her, showed her the note, and told her I was concerned there might be some drugs in the car and didn't want her to get in trouble with it. So she went down with me to the car, looked in it, and sure enough, there was some methamphetamines and some marijuana. He was dumb once for the check fraud. He was dumb twice for the second note, so that makes him a dum-dum.
Sis, don't let anybody look in the console. No, really, sis. Oh, that's a rich one. Well, I'm sure that he's the one who needed consoling when he realized what he'd done. Huh?
Maybe it would cheer him up. I get it. Maybe it would cheer him up to know that he provided amusement to our audience. What do you think?
Nah. I don't think so, but I do think that we're out of time. Before we go, we want to say thank you to the officers who helped us out tonight and all the people in law enforcement across the country who help us around the clock by protecting us from bad guys.
This world would be a scarier place without you folks on the job.
If you've got a lead on a story or you just can't wait till next week for more state-of-the-art stupidity, visit our website at www.dumbcrimes.com.
As always, we hope that we've all learned from others' mistakes.
But if you haven't, we just might see you next week on America's Dumbest Criminals.
Goodbye.